Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Terre Haute City Council. It's 6:02 p.m. on Thursday, August 10th, 2017. We start all of our regular meetings with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. Tonight will be led by Councilman Morris.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Michelle, please.
Councilwoman Aller. Present. Councilman Azar.
Present.
Councilwoman Crofton. Present. Councilman DeBon.
Here.
Councilman Elliott.
Here.
Councilman Garrison.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Nasser.
Present.
Councilman Nason.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you, Michelle. This is your first time at our regular meeting of the City Council. We allocate 30 minutes at the beginning of our council meeting for public comments for non-agenda items. Our agenda is up at the front pew right here if you want to grab one to see what's on our agenda tonight, but this is the moment that you can come and comment on anything that is not on our agenda. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Ed Damon. I'm a retired police officer. My address is 1656 4th Avenue. My question is, why can't the state of Indiana help the city of Terre Haute? They have a stake in our welfare, in my opinion. They set property tax levels, and they built Lucas Oil Stadium with tax revenues, and every taxpayer in Terre Haute, including active and retired police officers, paid to help Indianapolis. For them, state officials, to say to the city of Terre Haute to cut the police pension is very unjust for us retirees. That was in the paper. If they, the state, can help multi-millionaire NFL owners, why can't they help the city of Terre Haute till they get their budget on the ground? Their state surplus now is $42 million, and their state reserve is $1.8 million. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Welcome, please.
Council. I'm John Avanetti. I'm a retired police officer. I went on the job at 72 and retired in 93. And I appreciate you all being here to hear what we have to say. I've got just a little short thing. I'll try to get right through it. And I wanted to thank, I already talked to Martha, and I wanted to thank she and I knows what we're talking about, and I thank her for what she was talking and helping us out last time around with the, not tabling it, but going ahead with the program. So, okay, let's see. I don't normally do this, so I'm going to try to get through this as best I can. As I said, I spent 21 years on the department, and these people, the guys here, we're not here to cause any problems, protest or anything like that. These men here are very good people, and they're awful good officers. I know each and every one of them, and they put their lives on the line every day they came to work. We didn't get paid much, and our salary showed it. I won't tell you what I made because it's not really important, but it was tough to get along with family, 2 children and a wife, and it was very low. Most of the guys here today had to work extra jobs, 2 or 3. They were so proud of their job that they didn't really complain. They went and did what they were supposed to do. Most of us now are on a set income, and the pension money is a big part of it. All we want is what is ours, if I might say ours, and it is kind of a slap in the face to have to come to the council council meeting to discuss it. Also, just real quick, we as police officers, missed a lot of family time in that we were working other jobs besides our job on the street. And our wives at that time had to be strong because they had to take on most of the duties that we should have been able to do, but we were working extra, and we weren't able to attend some of the ball games and functions, and I missed a lot of Christmases. I missed a lot of holidays, but that was my job, and I went without any complaint. And so that's pretty much all I have to say. And again, I want to reiterate that these fellows here that have retired, these policemen here, they're good men. Good men. I know each and every one of them. And also, besides being good men, and lady, we had a lady here, good police officers. We would have put our life, we're kind of like brothers. And we all enjoyed going home in the morning, or evening, or afternoon, whatever shift we were on. But we were brothers, and if I might use the word, we loved each other. We knew each other's families, the kids growing up and things like that. So that's pretty much what I want to say. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Good evening.
Yes, my name is Donald Hyde. I live at 1411 Poplar Street, and I've lived here all my life. I'm now 63 years old. So when I was younger and was in high school, we talked about civics. I was told, oh, you're too young. You don't understand. You haven't seen enough. Well, at 63, I think I've now seen a lot. One of the things I'd like to complain to this city council about, and I'd like to see this city council start solving, is the communications problem we have in this town and in this county. One of the problems is we have 3 or 4 very big ticket items that's going to take up a lot of the cash and put this county in debt where they're paying bills for the next 20 years. And you don't ask questions as to why. And I have not heard one of you on the city council ask anybody, how did we get there? What happened? Why do we got to build a jail, remodel the jail, and then be told before either time the bills are paid off, we've got to build a new one, oh, and it's got to be bigger. Yet none of you have dared ask a question. Second of all, and this is part of that as well, for some reason this town, who has 5 colleges in it, 5 high schools, 5 now called middle schools, not junior highs, but I'm old, and 18 elementary schools. And I'm doing a history of education, and I assure you there were far more schools than that in its past. Yet with all that, we are terrible about keeping and remembering and recording history. Now you may ask me, why is that important? Oh, please. Have you not bought anything in your lives? And I know you have. You're all successful people. You bought cars, you bought houses, you've even built buildings. But when you represent the county and the city, and you use taxpayer monies to build buildings, guess what? It's the same thing. And when you build a building, you want blueprints. You want the builder to prove he can build the building. You want him to tell you how he's going to build the building and what materials it's going to use. And you want to find out if those materials and that plan was followed through. And if it was, then every single taxpayer, every single citizen has a right to ask a fair question. What happened? Why are we being forced to build buildings that last not even to where the mortgage is paid off? I've got no problem with this, except for this. When did we become this way? Because I'm doing a study of the history of Vigo County and Terre Haute for the schools. And I got news for you. In the old days, the old boys When they built something, they might have regretted it, but when they built something they wanted built right, if it wouldn't stand for 100 years, they wouldn't bother turning the thing. They'd tell the architect, do it again. They owned brick factories, and they would use their bricks, but they didn't want that brick to fail. They needed that to advertise, so that they became one of the best brick companies there was. They took pride in what they were doing. Where in the past, in this recent past, have we lost pride in what we're doing? And all that gets back to my other point about history. We need to keep better records, and then we need to share those records with the public. Because without those records, and without shared knowledge, how are you guys going to vote fairly on what you pass anything on, decide to build anything on, pay any price for it, if you have no understanding of what the price was, should be, could be? And more important than that, what the city and the county is getting for that money. I'll let it go at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on non-agenda items?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Hawk. I'm a retired police officer. I'm really concerned that we have one of the biggest misappropriation of funds in city and county history. And with it, there is no investigation as to who started this, who is involved with this, and who continues to okay it. I have talked to several people, and I do believe that my next course of action as a retired police officer and as a citizen of Terre Haute is I'm going to contact law enforcement agencies to see if we can find out who started this fiasco and why is it still continuing today. If there are people who are going to be embarrassed, I'm sorry about that. But that's how I feel. Because we're just assuming that so-and-so did this back in so-and-so, and, you know, we're missing millions of dollars here from what I understand, and it's not even in the newspaper. If someone come in and robbed the Saratoga Cafe of $500,000, I'll bet you every news media in the state of Indiana would be here. Correct?
It'd be investigating my death.
Exactly. Right. So what I'm telling you, or not telling you, I am telling you that when I leave here tonight, I'm going to meet with several people who are affiliated with the state and the federal government. And whoever volunteers to take that investigation, that's who I'm going to turn it over to, and let the chips fall where they may.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on non-agenda items? Okay, Michelle, corrections to the journal? Oh, I'm sorry. And I just want to remind everybody that this is the time where we're going to be speaking on non-agenda items. I know that there's a lot of retired police officers that are going to be speaking on a general ordinance that we have before us tonight, but this is for anything that's not on our agenda.
Okay. My name is Don Tyler. I'm a retired police officer. I was a Marine and I had rules to follow. I was a police officer. I had rules and laws to follow. I was an internal affairs investigator for the state of Indiana, and I had rules to follow. There are laws. You folks live by all these laws. We live by the laws. There's a law governing this pension. It's rather simple. Put it away somewhere, leave it alone. That's all there is to it. It does not have to be complicated. The attorneys are much more learned than I am. They know what these laws say, and I think it's incumbent upon them to inform you so you can make good decisions. As us being laymen out here, We know the laws exist. Please follow them.
Thank you, sir. Corrections to the journal, Michelle, please.
There was one from the July new business. Appropriation 5 was read into new business with the incorrect dollar amount. Correction has been made, and a legal notice was sent with the correct dollar amount. I apologize, it was off $1.
We don't need to do anything, do we?
No.
No, thank you. Communications,
They're in your packets.
okay. Reports from governmental agencies.
The first one is we will be having a special meeting September 7th, 2017 at 5 p.m. It's a presentation by Umball and Associates. The next is before you, you will have a tentative schedule on the budget process. I believe everyone received a copy. I will have a copy on the website tomorrow sometime. September 14th, 2017, the public hearing will be held at 5:30 p.m. concerning the 2018 budgets. This is for the general public to make comments. September 19th, a special meeting with the Mayor Bennett and Leslie Ellis in the council concerning discussion of the proposed budgets. If necessary, there's also a meeting scheduled for September 20th, also at 5 p.m. October 5th, there will be a discussion on the 2018 budgets, but no action may be taken. That will be during the Sunshine meeting. October 12th at 6 p.m. during the October regular meeting is when action will be taken on the budget.
Question.
Councilwoman Crossman.
Michelle, is the meeting on the 19th at 5 as well?
Yes. I apologize, I didn't put that on there. Yes, it is at 5.
Thank you. I yield.
Councilman Elliott.
Yeah, I have several things that I want to talk about or report, or I think the more accurate term might be get off my chest. I did notice in the June financial statements, our pilot revenue was $1,500,000. I was expecting that to be $2 million, half of the $4 million that's in our budget. We don't have anyone from the administration here to ask. I thought we would this evening, but I just want to make that comment. I also received an email today from Mrs. Dumas, the lady on Wilson that was here. Her and her husband was here last month, and she informed me their neighbor, Mr. Clary, was taken by ambulance to Union Hospital yesterday and is in ICU in critical condition. She goes on to state this is a result of him not being able to care for himself and Adult Protective Services refusing to become involved. I responded to that email, and they said it was okay for me to report that this evening. Then I got a later email from her that says the city mowing crew came today to weed, eat, and mow that yard. We got an email, mid-afternoon from the mayor about the 1782 notice. I don't know if you all read that, related to the budget situation. Basically, he was telling us that he really didn't have anything new to report. I responded to that saying, well, Mayor, most of the council members may not know what led up to this and how we got there, and I would report on that. So bear with me. The 1782 notice is a preliminary budget order that DLGF issues as their initial response to the budgets that we submit to them. In that notice that they sent on January 27th, it reported reductions in, I believe it was four budgets, might have been 5, including that significant $8 million budget cut in the general fund. The response is due by the administration. Response was due by February 6th to that preliminary budget order.
Whether they got a response or not, I don't know. But then the final budget order was released on February 10th of 17. The Form 1782, the original, or the preliminary budget order, is emailed to the email addresses that are input into the gateway system in that section by whomever enters the budget data. Those email addresses were Leslie's, Scott Walker's, and Paige Sansone at Umball. Those three individuals should have received that email. Now, in a series of further emails that I had with members of Department of Local Government Finance to just kind of figure out, what the heck happened and why the budgets were cut, here is what I learned. In budgets for years prior to 2017, you did not have to consider the impact of the property tax cap in your revenue projection. So you basically, you were allowed to overstate that by the amount of the property tax cap, and we were doing that, and that, using that higher level of revenue, indicated we would have a positive balance at the end of that budget year, therefore the budget was fundable. Well, apparently Senate Act 321 that was apparently passed in the spring of 2016 changed all of that. I have not read the act itself, but I've read several other postings of documents on the DLGF website that talk about the effect of that. Well, that was the issue that came up and it caused the cut in the budgets. That with the impact of the property tax cap in those funds, that would cause those funds to have a projected deficit balance, so they just reduced expenditures so that the projected cash balance would be zero. So that's basically what they did, and the DLGF just, enforces or addresses the law. They don't make the law, in my understanding. So the mystery to me is, again, why we don't find out for 6 or 7 months what's going to be asked of us to help fix the problem. When the time comes, I can only envision all sorts of strategies being employed to try to solve that. I kind of feel like, as a member of council, I'm the person at the back of the circus parade pushing the cart that's got the wheels with the broom and the dustpan to clean up the garbage and go on. I do know, the mayor's talked for months about working on a financial plan with Umball. Well, I can understand certainly why and why it might be taking so long now. And he's indicated they're going to be meeting with the Department of Local Government Finance and possibly State Board of Accounts. The penalty for spending that exceeds what approved appropriations are is 125% of the amount of the excess. But it doesn't really say who the responsible party is for that. So it's turned out that President Nasser and myself had both contacted individuals at the DLGF to ask for help, and we've got a response, and I think we're going to get that help and the opportunity to meet with them. I think we need to kind of go down our path and get our guidance from them, let the administration get their guidance, and maybe sooner or later they'll want to talk about it with us. So that's a synopsis on that. The two other issues that I want to point out, there was a declaratory resolution approved by the sanitary board the other day for up to $85 million of borrowing. Now, my understanding, the long-term control plan phase 2 was only about $40 million, $40 or $42 million. So I've asked, emailed Mr. Ennis and inquired about that, and kind of got some sort of response. And now in the mayor's email today, he says that Dean Rogers from Umball will be making a presentation next week to us on the sanitary board.
That's next month,
Or
correct?
next month, I'm sorry, next month, yes, thank you. And my question I've asked 2 or 3 times that I haven't gotten a response to yet is, are we going to be asked to raise the fees again? That's the $1 million question, because there seems to be a strong correlation between Umball presentations and raising revenue, a very strong correlation. So you can be thinking about, that issue. And then I also got a phone call yesterday from a city vendor that wants to meet with me. That's they're delayed. Their payments to them are significantly delayed. And I don't know if anybody else has received any complaints about that, but I'm sure I'll meet. I want to find out, how bad it is, how it compares to the past, and kind of see what we can see what I can glean. So, thank you.
Councilman Garrison.
Mr. President, back to the first thing that Councilman Elliott was talking about, the $7 million reduction in the general fund that is now coming to us from the DLGF that we're hearing about. I was pretty upset, again, that we didn't get this information sooner. And at first I thought, well, is the administration, is the mayor trying to keep this information from the city council in fear of us making more reductions? And I really wasn't sure why that would be kept from us. And I wonder, is it maybe not us, maybe it's the financial institutions that we have borrowed millions of dollars from? Is it the redevelopment commission that we borrowed millions of dollars from and then re-upped and extended that loan? Or is it the county that we borrowed $6 million from? I'm not sure who that was targeted at, but I'm not at all happy about that. And so I had called President Nasser to see if we could go, rather than wait for this to be filtered through the mayor and the administration, that we go directly to the source, to DLGF or the State Board of Accounts or whoever we can, to get this directly from them. And have you heard anything from them?
I reached out to Deputy Commissioner, was it Peterson? Parkinson, excuse me, and told him the lack of transparency in getting information from the administration, and told him that I felt like when they met with the administration that they needed to set some time to meet with the council, and they agreed to that. So they're going to set up a day and time to meet with members of the Finance Committee to go over that, and then if we need to set a public hearing as well to allow the full council to ask questions, they said that they would be willing to do that as well. So I'm just waiting to hear back from the Deputy Commissioner.
That'd be great. Thanks for looking into that. I yield.
Councilwoman Crossen.
Yes, I'd like to ask Councilman Elliott, have you seen the correspondence from DLGF yourself, of the 782 and...
I mean, they sent me a copy of the 1782, emailed me a copy of the 1782, and then also the final budget order. And I didn't ask for any other correspondence. I just wanted to know, what happened and why, and basically, who knew what when is what I was trying to figure out. And then from there, you try to answer why. Well, I can't answer why we didn't find out till.
Well, I shared the concerns that have already been expressed by yourself and by Councilman Garrison. And as I think most of you know, I I first just directly asked the mayor for copies of those documents and had not received them, and then I asked him, copying all of you, so you know to ask for those, and you also know I haven't received them, nor have you. Is there any reason that you can think of that would be adequate to justify overstating the effect of the property tax caps? What would be the advantage of that? You said that that we, prior to this year, we had not been required to. Can you think of any reason that it would? I can't, but you're an accountant.
I
maybe
mean,
you can think of a
I
reason.
think that provision that they passed certainly makes a lot of sense to me. You shouldn't be able to authorize deficit balances at the end of the year because you're counting phantom income. And I've talked to them about that in the past. The lady that's responsible from DLGF for this part of the state, I talked to her in prior years about that when I tried to first understand the budget forms, and she agreed that's what it allows, but that's the way it is. So, but now all of a sudden that they changed it in the spring of 2016, and nobody told us, this group, that they changed it. I mean, that's been out there for a long time. That's what puzzles me.
Okay. So, well, we haven't, obviously this is sitting on our table tonight, none of us had a chance to look at this 2018 budget, but, since the mayor's not here, I'm just going to ask some questions that I wanted to ask him had he been here, including the ones I just asked to Councilman Elliott. But I'd like to know what process he went through, or the administration went through with department heads for the 2018 budget preparation, since they've known since February. I would assume that would have included requested department heads to make dramatic cuts where possible and to propose creative ways to deal with that. I'd like to know about that. I think we have several departments that still don't have department heads. I assume somebody's serving as interim, but we've never been told who those persons are. I'd like to know who those persons are, and I'd like to know if they are also the persons that have been contacted about dealing with the budget. If the mayor's working with UMBA, but I'd like to know how he came up with the numbers that he's giving to UMBA and proposed cuts. And I think that comes from a lack, some of these questions I might not ask if I felt like we'd been dealt with transparency all along, but this is a continuing pattern. This isn't the first time that we haven't been given transparent information. Another example you used tonight here is the almost more than doubling of the amount of the bond issue with the sanitary board. And we have heard nothing about that until it had already happened and we asked about it. We are the fiscal body for this city. The mayor is the administrator of the city, and I would normally say an administrator has to be given leeway to administer. But I think we are in grievous debt, and we all need to pull together to make that happen. And if we have a situation where we're not finding out about really serious matters like the 782 notice until months later, clearly that is not happening. And so I think we have to somewhat insert ourselves in matters that we wouldn't otherwise have to. I haven't talked to the mayor directly about this, but he's quoted in the newspaper, and I haven't seen him make any corrections of that this really isn't that big a deal, that they're not going to require us to take care of it all at once, and that there will absolutely be no layoffs. Well, I'm looking at our budget, and I think it would be pretty hard for us to absorb $8 million without doing some pretty hard work that might include some personnel issues. And I think that's awful that we might have to do that, but I think somebody from this city government needs to stand up to our people and say, this may be the place that we are. I hope it isn't, but it may be. And We can't continue to kick the can down the road. Sooner or later, the city has to deal with this debt and has to deal with deficit budgets. And I think it's time, and I'm really concerned about it. I yield.
Councilman Morris.
Why can't we call a special meeting with the mayor and get all these answers? I mean, give him a week.
I
and hold his
received,
feet to a fire.
I received correspondence from the mayor and Michelle regarding doing a special call for the Umball and Associates presentation on September 7th.
Well, I'm talking about the mayor.
No, I had asked if we could do that sooner, and the mayor said no. So we can do a special call. That's the will of the council. I mean, he's not here tonight, and this meeting was planned, so that's my mindset.
Well, I think we need to start a dialogue among us and decide within the next few days that we need some answers. This just keeps going on, and we need some answers now. And I think we need to have a public hearing where he stands up and answers our questions on why this, why this, January, and now we're hearing it. I do.
Councilman Azar.
What I'm concerned about, and maybe Earl, you can answer this for me, this particular act, 321, is that what you said? That was done in the spring of 2016. So if that was the case, then obviously the administration had to have known about that. Why were we presented with a budget that didn't take that into account? That's a question.
That's a great question.
And that's one of the questions that I really would want to know. That's one answer. And the second question is, why, if they were informed in January and the decision was made February 10th, are we just finding out about anything in August? And I've always been one to try to go along and hopefully get things worked out without problems. But, this is a case where I believe that we've kind of been, for lack of a better word, duped. So I think we need to get some answers here, and it's time. And I think all 9 of us need to be together on this and demand answers, period. And I yield.
Mr. President.
Councilman Nation.
I don't know who can answer this, but what's the mechanism by which we found out about these 1782 notices?
I was asked to go to a meeting with the mayor at Umball for a discussion of the initial draft of their financial plan. And in the documents that I had were given to me to look at was that 1782 form.
Okay.
And I saw that and I thought, oh my gosh, what? Why now? That meeting was on a Tuesday. It was Friday before I could really deal with that and with the DLGF to figure out what happened. That was a Friday before I found out. The following Monday, I talked to President Nasser about it. It was my recommendation we give the mayor till Friday at 5 to tell us, and if he didn't, I would. About 2 or 3 o'clock on Friday, he told us. And in between, Tribune Star reporter found out about it from a state senator or congressman, one of the two, from John Ford. Asked me about it on Wednesday. I wouldn't talk about it. I just didn't want to talk to anybody about it until that 5 o'clock on Friday, came up. But I just knew I didn't want to be the only one that knew that for any longer than what I thought I needed to.
So it was a meeting with Umball about the financial plan?
Yeah.
And that's the first one that you were late to
The
put
first
into?
draft.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I yield.
Eddie, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Councilman DeBon.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Morris. I feel we really need a lot of answers from the administration. I'm disappointed the mayor isn't here tonight. I have some questions to ask him, as I know many of you did as well. When I was elected onto this council, I considered myself an optimist and thought the only way we could work through our issues was if the council and the administration could work together. As time has progressed, I have found it to be the case that increasingly the administration refuses to work with us, and it's really disappointing to me, but it seems to be the reality of the situation. I yield.
Eddie, I was curious, in correspondence with the DLGF, they cited a Indiana code on what the penalties are if we don't abide by the budget order. Are you aware of that Indiana code?
I haven't done the research myself, but I'm aware that there is a penalty section.
Okay. I just was curious if you could reach out to the council members and let us know your interpretation, if that penalty would be for the fiscal body, the mayor, the controller, or all of us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I feel confident this will be resolved without a problem.
All right. Thank you.
Question.
Councilman Azar.
To be totally honest with you, I'm tired of hearing from Umball, and I'm tired of hearing from the administration. I would just as soon hear from the DLGF, get them here, and let's ask them these questions. Let's see what they say, and then I think that'll answer some of our questions. And personally, I just think it's time to go to the source, and it's time to do that. So I would request that you, as president, invite them to a council meeting.
I am working on that. Thank you.
I yield.
Anybody else?
I just want to say, I don't think, in the 9 years I've been here, I've been more happier than I am tonight after listening to all the comments from this council. So I appreciate everybody ready to step up and make some demands and get some things taken care of.
The silver lining in all this,
Glass half
and
full.
it's a pretty thin line, is we're forced to get rid of these deficit balances by law. So now we just got to figure out how they're going to do it. Yield.
Thank you. All right, Michelle, old business, please.
General Ordinance 7, 2017, amending City Code, Chapter 2, Article 9, Section 2-117, Police Pension Fund. This was previously tabled.
Petitioner to speak on this, please.
Council, Eddie Felling, City Attorney. Before I make my request to the council, I just want to reiterate that the original ordinance that's before the council here this evening is a very minor amendment to our city code. The purpose of that amendment was to direct future administrations to the proper state code that governs the use of police pension funds. I understand, and obviously the council's been made aware since July. I've been working with Mr. Gamble, who's helping represent the pensioners' interests on this matter, and we've been attempting to see if there would be some additional language we could add to that piece of legislation. And you do have a proposed amendment before you. I would be more than happy to comment on that at this time. I don't think that that is something that I can come before you today to say that I can totally agree with for a number of reasons. But that being said, I'm going to request that the council that this ordinance be withdrawn temporarily. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to devote to Mr. Gamble as I had hoped over the past week for obvious circumstances to help find some language that was going to meet some good middle ground for obviously our budget and the pensioners. But I promise you that if this is withdrawn here this evening, it's not going to go away, and I'd like to alleviate any concerns that the pensioners that are here tonight would have with regard to that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on General Ordinance 7, 2017?
Good evening, councilpersons. My name is Noah Gamble. I represent the 1925 pensioners, some of whom have come this evening. There's a great deal of talk with regard to the discussion of the city finances, and I find that with regard to my clients, that is another unfortunate casualty with regard to city finances, is the guarantee that they get paid the pension fund money that they have earned. Then I'm not going to recount exactly how the 1925 pension fund works. I think I've educated or done my best to educate you the best that I can. I want to talk about leadership, actually. And actually, Councilwoman Crossan kind of stole my thunder about kicking the can down the road. My clients want desperately a guarantee from the city government that what they have earned will be protected. And really, all we're asking is that this body pass an ordinance that mandates that the city follow state code. That's it. It's very simple. I know maybe the practicalities, some people would argue, are more difficult. But the simple request is that you pass an ordinance that just mandates that the city follow state code. And part of that state code is that the city cannot make, that the money in the police pension fund can only be dispersed for items permitted under state code. And that would be 1925 pensioners, their widows, or their beneficiaries. Thank you. One of the tests of leadership is recognizing a problem before it becomes an emergency. And this body was asked to make an emergency loan last spring. And the only way that my clients were able to get their pension fund is because of that loan. That's the reality of it. And it's easy to keep the helm of a ship in calm storms, but it's a whole heck of a lot harder in the middle of a storm, and we're in the middle of a storm right now. A lot of things are coming to a head. And this body is going to have to make some really, really tough decisions, and I don't envy you. It will be very, very hard. But in my mind, this is a much easier call, and that is to make sure that these police pensioners get the money that's earned to them. And it's unique in that this city body gets reimbursed, about 97%. Doesn't get reimbursed administrative costs, but gets reimbursed by the state. It takes time, but it gets reimbursed. The other practical issue that this body needs to understand is that, God forbid, this city can't make its payments. If it does not show the state by January 31st as to how much they have paid, the city runs the risk of not getting reimbursed. And that is a reality. That's something I got from the Pension Relief website through the Public Employees Retirement Fund on the state website. That according to statute, you may be ineligible to receive a distribution if you do not supply the complete information on time. And supplying complete information on time seems to be an issue. Do these people right. Make sure that they get that their money is protected. Make sure that they get what they have earned. Again, it's a unique fund in that it is governed by statute, and the city gets reimbursed for it, up to 97%. I'm just going to finish with this last quote, which I feel is appropriate tonight, is that this is from Douglas MacArthur, a true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the quality of his actions and the integrity of his intent. I ask leadership from this council and to take that position on behalf of my clients. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on General Ordinance 7, 2017?
Yes, sir.
My name is George Ralston. I had 26 years with Terrell Police Department, and 6 years I was Police and Fire Commissioner. Those two flags behind you is what we represented, is what we did. Some of us died during the course of our time on the job. All these guys back here I've worked with. I've worked for some of them, and I've worked with most of them. In fact, Jerry Hawk back there was my training officer. They tell you how old he is, he's my little league baseball coach. But be that as it is, I feel that police work with quality. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody can be a school teacher. There's a lot of different jobs that we're not cut out to be. But, you know, when you see things on the job that will make a billy goat puke, or you go into a situation and you try to remain objective when the parents are doing methamphetamine and the kids, just by being there, are addicted to methamphetamine, and then you have to take the kids away from the parents, and they're screaming and hollering, they want their mommy and daddy, and they don't understand. This is what we've all done. And we're just after some consideration for a pension. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ray Watts, retired policeman, of course. That's all you've heard from tonight. You know, when I was chief, I had to make a lot of hard decisions also. And I found out the hardest thing for anybody to tell somebody else is no. Not a very big word, but it's a hard word to do because everybody wants to be liked. Well, we want to be liked, but we want to be fair. And we're asking for a very simple solution here. Just do what the state law says you're supposed to do. And if they hadn't done things they weren't supposed to do over 10 years ago, taking money out of our pension and using it for other things they wasn't supposed to, we wouldn't be here. Because, like the attorney said, the state does reimburse us 97%. It's a year later. But my contention, the 10 years they were paying health insurance and whatever else they were paying, because it's all pooled and nobody can find out anything. I hear your frustrations. Ours is the same. I'm just trying to find out how many people still on the pension plan. I'm thinking it's 70-some because we lost 3. We lose 3 or 4 every year. So that plan is going down. And, you know, we talk about tax caps. I've heard this forever. Well, I don't know about you, but I get my assessment at home and it's never went down. So I'm not paying less taxes. And I know your people's got to be upset with the sewer bills, the trash bills, fire hydrants, wheel tax, on and on and on. So just please pass this ordinance so we can go home and don't bother you. Just go by the law. We all took the same oath to uphold the Constitution, the laws, and everything. That's all we're asking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, based on what I've heard, I am fully expecting this board to vote 9-0 to pass that one resolution. However, I think that it's time you guys became leaders. I think it's time you write a new city code, a very clear city code to the mayor and the future city council, that from this day forward, whenever you decide to write the law and pass it, that budget for the pension must be officially kept track of, and it must be reported on yearly by law. And every single year by law, it must be voted on by the council, so that there can never be a mistake where you don't know what's going on. They can't hide it anymore. I don't know why that's not already been done long ago. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's David Barnett. I'm a retired Terrell PD officer like the others. I was on the job for 41 years. I just retired a couple of months ago. There's a tidbit that I just wanted to tell the council. Most of you probably don't know, except for maybe attorneys or the accountants. Police officers here in Terrell City cannot get Social Security. I mean, they get Social Security, but they don't pay into Social Security. Our Social Security is our pension. We get, when you turn 65 or 63, when you go on Social Security, you get a quarter of your benefits of Social Security. Not full, you get a quarter. They take 3/4. That came from the state. They say, well, you're getting a government pension, so we're going to take 3/4 of your pension and give it back to the state. That's fine. So we live on the pension, most of us. And I just want to tell you that's really important. So if I would hesitate, I would not like to see anything cut from our pension, because some of us live on the pension, and not Social Security, because we don't get Social Security. And you can call over there and try to get Social Security and pay it yourself. They won't do it. The city has to do it. If you want to change that, that's fine, but we do not pay Social Security. County deputies pay Social Security, and they get Social Security and their pension. We only get our pension. We can't pay Social Security and get full benefits unless you work another full-time job, 20 quarters, full-time. That's the kicker. It's full-time. You have to make a certain amount of money, which is probably today like $30,000. If you don't get $30,000 in part-time jobs, you don't make full-time money, so you don't, that doesn't qualify, 20 quarters. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this? Council?
Mr. President.
Councilman Nation?
Got a question for Mr. Gamble. Noah, in your remarks, you asked us to follow the code. And when I look at what's been proposed by the administration, it's one word, or one sentence rather, like Eddie told us. And it says, the use of the police pension fund shall be governed by Indiana Code 36861. I guess my question is, you led us with your remarks all the way up to the point of do something, but you didn't tell us exactly what it is you want us to do. I understand that we have a proposed amendment from you before us. Is that what you're asking us to do?
Yes. Essentially, what our position is that if these monies are commingled in the general fund, they run the risk of violating state code. And by that meaning that, and I'm quoting the statute, no part of the 1925 fund may be used for any other purpose other than for the exclusive benefit of 1925 pensioners and their beneficiaries. Because of the risk of those funds being used for another purpose, because of that commingling, there is a huge risk on behalf of this city, legal or otherwise, that those funds are used for another purpose. If there are other ideas how to protect those monies, I'm all ears. And Mr. Felling and I have been tried to work together on to get that. I can understand he's been a little bit busy lately. I can understand those reasons. But the best that I could come up with, and the best that my clients and I could come up with together, is to make sure that there is money in a segregated account so that is spent down until the next property tax disbursement. But I put it in much more detail in that amendment, but that's essentially the best way, in my mind, to make sure that those monies are protected. And to follow state law.
I guess I don't understand why you wouldn't already be following state law.
That's $1 million question.
Councilman Morris.
Are you asking us to pass it as it's written now, or I'm confused on what you're asking.
I am asking that this body adopt the amendment that I have proposed and then pass the ordinance with that amendment.
And Mr. Felling, you're saying what? Do you
I
have a
want to
problem?
change gears just a little bit. I want to make it clear, because Mr. Nation brought this up. It doesn't matter if the council passes what I proposed here tonight. The city is bound by state law, and any alleged misappropriations, and that's not the right word to use as far as how the money was allocated, has been corrected. And we know what the state code is, and we are bound by it regardless of what is passed here. So to help alleviate some of those fears, there was a comment that was made earlier. In my mind, there's nothing to correct at this point. The problem has been corrected. Moving forward, we will be bound by the state law. The reason for this proposed amendment was to make it abundantly clear in our city code that is flat out wrong on how it's written.
Okay. So you're saying you're okay if we pass it as amended, presented?
I have no objection whatsoever. If the council would like to pass the ordinance as presented, not without amendment, all that is doing is referencing the code, the state code that we must follow anyway. If nothing is done on this, then we're going to have an incorrect city code, but we're bound by the state code no matter what. So obviously, we're aware of what's going on, and we know what the rules are at this point.
Eddie, just to go back to some of their concerns and so forth, do you know, I mean, I'm sure you know the answer to this, I apologize. Have the petition or the pensioners been late on their checks at all this year?
This year, they have not been late. It's my understanding that one time in history, there has been an actual late disbursement on payments, and that was due to an error by the financial institution. There was an issue earlier this year where the checks had to be mailed as opposed to a direct deposit. So technically, they were not late. They went out the day that they were required to go out, but they weren't given out as a direct deposit.
Was that date the day we did the short-term borrowing?
It would have been, I believe, the week, sometime within that week is when the issue occurred, yes.
Okay. Thanks. Councilwoman Crossen.
One of the first meetings I went to after I became a council person was the end of, I believe it would have been 2014. It was an audit meeting with the state auditor. And the state auditor said, as the mayor has said to us many, many times, that it is not a violation of, at that time, of state law to pool funds. And the state auditor said, yes, confirmed that. It was not a violation of state law to pool funds. But that, in fact, it was not good practice to pool funds when you didn't have enough money to pay, when you didn't have an excess of money. Because that leads to situations where you're using money that isn't needed for one purpose later, until later, to pay things. Basically, I think the common phrase would be robbing Peter to pay Paul. And it seems to me that this is an example of where that becomes more than just a shuffling of funds to get by, that this becomes a situation where state law says that money has to be available at all times. But if you're running a pooled account where you don't have enough money, then you almost by definition have to, at times, maybe not all the time, maybe not every month, but at times are going to be taking money from an account that is supposed to be kept segregated to pay those. So I understand your concern, and I have that concern, and I've had it since that meeting. And if you would go back and check tapes of meetings, you would know that I've expressed that on more than one occasion. I agree with Councilman nation, that one would expect that since it is state law, that we shouldn't have to make any special ordinance on it. But we're here on a night when we're all painfully aware that things haven't always been done in a very responsible way, and that, I think, is putting it mildly. So that being the case, I can understand why these former public servants want us to spell it out for the city. And on that, at this point, I yield for any other council people that might have a question or want to make a statement.
Councilman Elliott.
So, does the law require a separate account?
Yes, based upon what's in that fund, it states it needs to have a separate account. The main concern and very important issue that this council has to understand is that pension fund survives entirely off of property tax dollars and state reimbursement dollars. The state reimbursement dollars doesn't reimburse us enough money. That account is currently in a deficit and has already been subsidized by property tax dollars to the tune of over $3 million. So you cannot segregate out a deficit account. I mean, you understand from an accounting perspective, it's impossible.
I understand. But that is the law. It should be in a separate account.
Correct, but you have to understand, if you would separate it out, it has to be still subsidized with property tax dollars. So what ends up happening is the pool works the opposite way.
I'll get to that. Now, this is a pretty lengthy document. I mean, I asked your office for it, and you sent it to me, and I tried reading it, and shoot, I have a hard time understanding what it all means. So we almost need a training section on exactly what's in here that's important to us. Now, concerning our pooling of cash accounts into one or two bank accounts, several things have happened in the last 18 months. The first being the SRF not allowing incremental wastewater funds to be in our cash pool. The second being the law change related to Department of Redevelopment funds. They have to be formally borrowed and subject to loan agreements approved by both parties. That has had a reduction in the funds available in the cash pool, in my opinion. The third is that we should have known a lot sooner, Senate Act 321, and not permitting, overdrawn account balances at year end to begin with. We now have that to deal with. And then we can, I guess, add this fourth one, the police pension fund. At May 31, on the cash statement, the deficit was $1,454,000 in that fund. You add the early June pension payments of about $196,000, the deficit balance goes to $1,650,000. That's the number we're talking about coming up with if we're supposed to create a separate bank account to have it to be zero. That's the amount that we would need to come up with. Now, at the same time, though, the state reimburses us, and it's 18 months delayed. At the end of, after that June payment, the state owes us $3.5 million, in the reimbursements, in early June. So we're actually, receivable is ahead of the deficit cash by about $1.8 million at that point in time. And that's a huge amount, to be owed. So I'm trying to reconcile in my mind, is there some way to take that $3.5 million and convert that to cash? If you were an operating business, you'd take that receivable and you'd get a line of credit, you'd borrow against it if you needed that to operate. But being in a environment we're in, I guess I've never heard of a police pension reimbursement loan. Like you have for, for property taxes. So, this is a real dilemma. I don't have a suggestion or a solution. Of course, it's not been our requirement ever to have one. It's us to just listen to the administration. They tell us what they tell us, when they want to tell us, and what they want us to act on, and we act on it. So, I yield.
Madam President. Earl, but correct me if I'm wrong, that negative 1 million, that's how the city accounts for it, correct, of monies that have already been paid by the city? Is that how the city puts it in its accounting? That negative 1 million?
Negative is money that's been paid out. That's the net result of all the money that's gone into that fund and gone out of that fund.
Sure.
Over all these years.
So that's how the city accounts for it, is as a negative of monies that have been paid out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when the city gets reimbursed, it gets reimbursed by the state, not to create a surplus, but to get it close to zero.
Correct.
Okay. So by that's how the city accounts for it per se, but you would agree that those monies, regardless of whether it is a deficit on paper, those monies need to be there on a monthly basis for the payment of pensioners, correct? Because it creates a more and more negative on paper until the city gets reimbursed.
Okay.
Okay. And the only thing I would add, and where I would respectfully disagree with Mr. Felling, is that the city wasn't following the law when it was paying health insurance payments out of the 1925 pension fund that weren't for 1925 pensioners. That's why we are here, is to make sure that the city follows the law. And just saying that the city should follow statute, I don't think it's going to cut it. And so to spell it out in particular, to make sure that there is a guarantee that the law is followed, that's what I think needs to have happen. So.
Councilman Crossman.
Just briefly, I do agree with Councilman Elliott that we have a conundrum, but I do also think that now that we are aware of the requirements of this law, and that we also know that it hasn't been followed, that we need to protect our pensioners and ourselves as to what we expect of our city government. With that, I will move that we adopt the proposed amendment as presented by Mr. Gamble.
So you wanted to...
Well,
you read it?
I do have a concern. Hold on a second, I've lost the ordinance. Thank you. In the ordinance before you, you have A, B, and C. So the proposed amendment is inserting D, E, and the sections below. Is that correct?
As I read it, Mr. Gamble, is that your intention?
I will readily admit that I am not the most proficient city ordinance amendment writer, but that's how I presented it, was that it would be inserted.
I wasn't questioning your...
My legal writing?
No, well, that's all.
So should you read it or good?
It's up to you.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
You think you can read it, Mark, just for the record?
Okay. The proposed amendment is Section 2-117, Police Pension Fund, Section D, that pursuant to Indiana Code 36-8-6-1 et sec, a separate interest-bearing city account shall be created segregating the 1925 pension fund from the city's general fund. Section E, that the city shall, upon every biannual property tax disbursement, deposit certain funds in said account, which shall be calculated as follows. I period, that the city, subsection I period, that the city shall calculate the total personal benefits of the 1925 pension fund from the previous year. Said amount shall be recalculated on an annual basis. Subsection 2, that, or II, that every biannual tax disbursement, the city shall deposit 50% of the previous year's calculated total personal benefits into the segregated 1925 pension fund account. Said amount shall be recalculated on an annual basis. Section III, should a deficit accrue in the 1925 pension fund account, said deficit shall be made up either by the transfer of city funds or by a portion of the state's reimbursement to the city. I yield.
And I'll second her motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilwoman Crossen, second by Councilman Garrison, that we amend General Ordinance 8, 2017. Oh, excuse me. General Ordinance 7, 2017. Roll call vote, Michelle, please.
I'll wait to see what the amendment vote is before adoption.
Councilwoman Aller?
Yes.
Councilman Azar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Crossen?
Yes.
Councilman DeBon?
Yes.
Councilman Elliott?
Yes.
Councilman Garrison?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilman Nation?
Yes.
Councilman Nasser?
Yes.
That's 9 yes.
Okay. Amendment carries. Go ahead.
If I may, just briefly, just a forewarning to the council, obviously, I understand you'll vote here tonight however you feel is the correct way. Based off my math, it looks like this would pull out about $1.2 million out of the general fund this December's disbursement. That is $1.2 million we'll have to make up. 50%, if you read the amendment that you just adopted, 50% of the yearly payouts are about, or the yearly payouts are about $2.4 million right now. So that'd be over $1 million that we pulled out of the general fund. And my understanding is it would be this December.
Mr. President?
Councilman Nation.
I haven't participated in any of the meetings with UMBAW about the financial plan, but I wonder if this is even on the radar of the administration to try to, as one of the many things that they're trying to sort out financially. Do you have any, do you know, Eddie?
If they are addressing if this would pass, how to make up for that, that change. Well, and again, if this is passed, it's really money, the money that's getting reimbursed, again, we all know is money that's owed to the city. I don't know that that is part of their plan at this point. Again, that any money that would be taken out pursuant to this adoption really technically is owed to the city is money that's been paid out anyway. So I don't believe that they are planning for that. And I do know, obviously, that'll have a substantial impact. 1.2, 1.1, however you look at it, $1 million would be extremely difficult to make up, and especially in December when we are in August at this point.
I yield.
I would like to make a comment, just sitting here thinking through this. You know, if all of this is general fund money, and general fund money pays for a lot of services and things that we have and that are operating, and if you're looking at this big pot of money and you know you're short, which accounts do you shorten? You probably shorten, pardon me? You probably shorten the accounts that you don't think anyone's going to complain about. That'd be my guess. I don't think that worked. They're all here. Just an observation. So we're going to have to shift that from somewhere else. I yield.
Roll call question.
May I just add one thing, if I may? My clients want to make sure, it is not my client's intention to break the city or to harm the city in any way, but just to make sure that the monies that are already owed to them are protected. That's why we're here, and that's why we're arguing this. And I will say that adjustment in not paying health insurance for non-1925 pensioners will help reduce that amount that the city will have to hold back. So there is that. But again, it's just, this is money that's already owed to them to make sure that they receive those pension payments.
Councilman Elliott.
Mr. Kelly, are we today in violation of the Indiana code on this by not having a separate bank account for this money?
I understand that the code specifies a separate account. I don't know, I would have to imagine it is in a separate account. The question that we're getting, I think, a little confused here is whether or not the aspect of pooling versus a separate account.
Well, the accounting records already tell us it's overdrawn by $1.5 million.
Correct.
Okay.
So there has to be some form of pooling because we can't have a negative account. Correct.
That's the logic I draw. Logical conclusion I draw from that. So we need to correct that problem. But we really need a little time to do that. To get that done. I think that's what you're trying to
Absolutely.
Tell us.
And I'm totally in support of this as well. I just, the hit at the very upfront, yes.
I yield.
Mr. President, just in the interest of getting time to repay this, sounds like it's going to put a strain if this is to be paid back by the end of the year, and you're saying $1.2 million, we'll get one tax disbursement. Mr. Gamble, just as a conversational question, what would you think of making it 2 tax disbursements and have it repaid end of June, July of next year? And I know I'm putting you on the spot and you haven't had a chance to converse with everybody, but
I've got a mixed crowd. I have a mixed crowd with my clients, and that's something I'd have to discuss with my clients.
you want to take a 10-minute break and do that, or?
Mr. President,
Or we could just plow ahead. I'm just trying to.
No, I just wanted to point out, it hadn't got to this point yet, but I believe I'm going to have to advertise it before you can pass it anyway.
Because of the amendment.
Because of the amendment. It's more restrictive. So I'm going to have to advertise it anyway.
It's my understanding that the amendment was already advertised. No?
No, council never took action on the amendment, so there's nothing for me to advertise for.
But now we have.
Now you have. Now you have. The normal course of action when you make something more restrictive is you pass the amendment and you table it. I advertise it, and then at the next month's meeting, you can take action.
Councilman Azar.
It sounds to me like there's a little confusion on everybody's side right now. It looks to me like we are all in favor of getting this done, but there are still some questions that may need to be answered, I think, by you and who you're representing, by the administration, so on and so forth. My suggestion would be, and again, I think that we're all in agreement that we want to protect this fund, and if this is the way to do it, that we're all going to support that. Since it has to be re-advertised, how about if we just table this until the next meeting so we can get the proper answers from everybody concerned? Actually, I don't think we have a choice. If the law says we have to advertise it, I don't think we have a choice either way, unless you withdraw the amendment and you pass the original ordinance without the amendment.
I would respectfully disagree that it's less restrictive. It's merely parodying the language of the law of what should be done. But in the interest of making sure the ordinance passes and it isn't revoked, I can understand the tabling for the purpose of advertising. I just don't believe. I believe it's not more restrictive. I believe it's merely following what the law dictates.
Let's go to the floor. Why, then, let me just ask this, and again, it's out of ignorance, it's just a question. If we pass the original ordinance that has been presented, does that, without the amendment, does that in fact protect these folks from here on.
It does not, because you're still commingling the pension fund with the general
That's
fund.
supposedly against state statute.
That's how I
Correct?
interpret it, yes.
How are you getting away with that? Not you. How are anybody getting away with that? If it's against state law to begin with, how did it happen?
Well, when you have a general fund as low as it is, I think most municipalities don't have that problem with a general fund where you are commingling funds and robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's probably customarily not a problem in other municipalities. Unfortunately, it's a problem here.
Okay, and again, I don't want these folks to be penalized. They deserve their pension, and we have an obligation to protect that pension. And I believe that we want to do that. I also believe that we need to, if this is the law, we don't want to pass something and then come back in a month or two and we're told, hey, guess what, guys? You didn't do it right, so it's null and void. So I think we need to do it right from the very beginning, and I'm all in favor of protecting and passing, and I'll be more than happy to vote yes on this. But I do believe at this point in time, if in fact we have to advertise it, let's do it so that we don't come back next month and they say, oh, you passed something now, it's null and void, it wasn't legal to pass it. Does everybody understand where I'm getting at, coming from? Do you have is that fair enough for everyone concerned?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but I think basically what you said is we want the law to be followed. And to give you a little background, 3 of us, Rick, George, and me, met with the city controller and the city attorney to try to get this straightened out before it got to you, okay? We had a meeting. We pointed out to them about the health insurance. Well, they come back later and say, oh, we're sorry, we didn't know, some other administrations must have been paying it, we just kept doing it. So the health insurance has been coming out of our pension for over 10 years that we know of. Or we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have this problem, because with the state reimbursing, we'd been in good shape. And they keep talking about a 1933 pension plan. I'll tell you, I can't find it. State Board of Accounts can't find it. Legislators can't find it. I don't know what they're talking about, where they took some of the interest that we invested in CDs for our pension plan when I was Secretary of the Pension Board, and that money's gone. Nobody knows where it's at. Now, what happened? I don't know. I'm not here to accuse anybody, but that's all we want, is you to go by the state law. Thank you.
And I believe that that's what we all want to do also. I just want to make sure that when we pass this, it is legal, so that we're not next month brought back and say, you shouldn't have done that. Does that sound fair?
That's fair. That sounds fair. That sounds fair. I mean, we can disagree on that, but to be on the safe side, it sounds fair. And in the meantime, I will talk with my clients that if this body passes the ordinance as amended, on a timetable in which to enact that.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Councilwoman Arnold.
I'd like to speak for a minute.
Just a second.
Sure.
I have a question, and I don't, Eddie or whoever wants to answer this question. We have an amendment before us that we need to advertise. Okay, say we come back around the table and it's been tossed around now, and you need to speak to your clients, that if we do 2 payments or whatever we're going to do instead of having the lump sum due in December, if we change that, wouldn't that have to be re-advertised too? Because that would be another amendment.
If you're going to make it less restrictive, so in my mind, all you're going to do is lighten what the amendment is here, I think you're okay. Because it's less restrictive at that point. What this amendment has done is made it more restrictive.
So that wouldn't have to be re-advertised?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Now, am I right in my thinking that as long as the state is more restrictive than us, we have to go by the state rules?
Absolutely.
Just as the county's more strict than us, then we go by the county, correct?
Yes.
So if the state's saying we have to have a separate account, and they're asking us to go by the state guidelines. I mean, even if we would pass this amendment or this amendment, whichever amendment, we still have to go by what the state is requiring us to do, correct?
Absolutely.
So even if we were to pass this amendment, or after this one's advertised and we pass this one, we are still bound to go by the state guidelines, correct?
Yes.
So why don't we have just one in front of us that says go by basically the state code?
That's the original ordinance.
That's the original ordinance.
So then then why do we need the amendment, is what I'm saying. I yield.
Councilman Morris.
Once again, there's questions that need to be answered, and the people who can answer those questions are not here. Simple as that. Our controller and our mayor. I yield.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my question is, okay, all of you up there will say if this is advertised and it comes back and everything is on the up and up, mayor comes in here, gives you a song and dance, says he can't do this because it'll break the city. Are you going to feel the same way about passing this? That's all I've got to say.
Councilwoman Crossen.
I would just quickly say in answer to your question, that if the law says we have to do it, then I believe we have to do it. In answer to something to consider, at least, not really an answer to a concern raised by Councilwoman Aller, I feel like we have to give more direction to our city administration than just follow the state law, because they haven't been following the state law. I yield.
And
Councilwoman Hawkins.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is now, we're at a point where, it's before us. We have something to put our teeth in to make sure that they are following the state guidelines.
I think we're in agreement, probably.
Yeah. Because now it's come before our council, we're aware of it, and I'm fully, these pensioners deserve to be protected. So now we have something before us, we're bound by a state law. I mean, we have something that if the city administration is not going to follow, we can say, hey, whoa, time out. This has come before all of us, we're all aware of it, the state guidelines need to be followed. I yield.
Mr. President, I think what might help all of us is I think we need some sort of clarification on pooling, because I think the only thing that's changed since all of this has been state law is pooling has come into play. And we've heard the mayor say pooling is legal and pooling is allowed. Unfortunately, it's become pooling and spending. So maybe we can get an update on the pooling and how that affects existing state law. Maybe, Eddie, you can help us with that next month.
I had a question for both Eddie and Noah. Each time you guys have been before us, you've told us that you guys are working on, finding a common ground. I'm concerned that if we just go by what the original amendment was, that's not going to be good enough for you guys. Noah, correct?
You mean the original?
The original one, excuse me. So I guess it kind of reminds me of the storm water where we kept tabling it, and eventually the people quit coming that we end up, deciding on. And I'm worried that we're just trying to do a waiting game with the pensioners to make them not want to come anymore. So that's what's frustrating, is that we keep kicking the can down the road. So can you guys respond to that?
What I can assure you that my clients are going to make sure that their interest is protected. And we'll keep coming here, and we'll keep making sure that at least one way or another, those monies are protected and not used for another purpose. One way or another, we'll try to make that happen.
Eddie, you want to?
I agree with, and I'd like to echo those concerns. Again, I've said since day one, I guess words are one thing, but I really think we can come to an agreement on this. What I'd like to see in the meantime is to get an opinion from DLGF or SRF or some other state agency with regard to Councilman Garrison's question with regard to pooling, and what, if anything, we can do about this account. And we're going to have to look at the hard numbers, which I have yet to even provide to the council to give a little bit of a history as far as the status of that actual fund itself. My suggestion is, again, what I've originally asked the council to do is to withdraw this at this time, and then what we'd like to do, and we can even set a time frame if the pensioners would like. If we don't come up with something by a certain date, they can propose whatever piece of legislation they would like, but in the meantime, we won't continue to, and I'm not saying this is a waste of time, but have the pensioners continue to come and to continue to have the same discussion if we're not in agreement. So I would ask that you give us a little bit of time.
Well, that's my question. We keep saying a little bit of time. I mean, do we need to wait, till Umball comes? I guess we need to have an end game eventually, and it seems like we keep kicking the can down the road, for lack of better terminology, but eventually they want, recourse, and we need to take care of that for them. So how much longer do we need to do this?
Absolutely. I can't give you a solid time frame. Again, all I can reiterate is at this point, the state code's being followed. We're going to have to address no matter what this bank account issue, because obviously this has been brought to the forefront. We know it's state law.
Okay. Councilman Owen.
Okay, and I guess I'm where you're at. We've kicked this
Can
down the road. What I suggest is, and this is only my suggestion, this has been we've tabled it already, now it's before us again. Now we need to be advertised. So we voted on an amendment. I say if we have to advertise this amendment, that gives 1 month for both sides to get together and come to some agreement. If not, we still have our amendment that comes before us to be voted on next month. And as of next month, I can only speak for myself. Next month, I'm voting one way or another. No tables, no withdrawals. So I urge both sides of this table, city administration, to meet with the pensioners, attorneys, and them, and come to a decision so next month we can vote on this.
Councilman DeVon.
I don't think our financial situation is going to change over the next couple months. It would be nice if it did, but I doubt that's going to be the case. Do you see any further work between Mr. Felling and Mr. Gamble? Do you see any further work you could do on this, or do you believe this is what we will be ultimately voting on at one point or another?
I absolutely will continue to work with Mr. Gamble. I think the big question we have to figure out is how we have to reconcile this account and under what time frame we have to do that. If there's not as much of a requirement on our end, obviously I think the administration stance will change on that issue. But if we have to make up for that $1 million deficit, one way or the other, we're going to have to make up for it regardless of what's passed here. So again, no matter what happens, we're going to continue to work to that stage. I'm just asking the council right now that we don't obligate some of those property tax dollars too quickly, especially with the dollar amounts we're talking about at this point. So short answer is yes. I'd be more than happy to continue to work with Mr. Gamble.
Mr. Gamble?
I agree. We've always come into this working with the administration. Mr. Felling has helped with that. But I can just reiterate that kicking the can down the road for the purpose of just the city making sure that these pensioners get what's already earned to them is doing it a disservice to them. This is, again, I'm always open to ideas. If there's something outside the box, I know that these women and gentlemen are open to it as well. But this has got to be addressed. Again, to go back to what I originally said, before we're in an emergency, this needs to be addressed sooner rather than later.
And I agree with you. I do feel, I'm afraid that we may be kicking the can down the road further, and that's the last thing I want to do.
Councilwoman Crossen.
Certainly, if we need to be sure we protect this to table it till next week specifically and only for the purpose of advertising it, then I would support that. But I think by next month, we need to have the answers to those questions that Mr. Felling is raising. And I understand this is a very busy time for the administration, but we're talking about being in compliance with the law here, and so that would be my concern. How do you?
Mr. Ernest.
My name's Rick Ernie, retired police officer, former chief of police. What I have to say is going to be short. Every time we've been here, Mr. Fowling has said, let's get together, let's talk, let's negotiate. Well, maybe he talked to our lawyer, but he's never talked to us. And I don't call that a meeting, because two attorneys talk back and forth. We're clients, we have something to say, and it's our decision on what we do. I didn't want to say this publicly. The reason we've got this amendment in front of you right now is because we don't trust the mayor to abide by the law. So we're asking you to do it. Thank you.
Councilman Azar.
And did you want to say something first? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, and I totally agree with what you're saying, and I definitely want to assure you that I believe we're all on the same page with that. I also see that UMBA is going to be here on our first meeting in September, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
How about if we make sure that they answer some of these questions about pooling or whatever your concerns are at that point in time? And at least, hopefully, we can all get some answers to this and not keep tabling this or whatever. I'm not willing to withdraw it, but I am willing to table it.
Councilwoman Muller.
If, I guess I'm asking Michelle, if we table it because of the amendment, then that automatically will,
The amendment's been passed. The amendment had just been handed to you last week.
right,
And so there was no way to advertise it because it was a sunshine meeting. So I have to wait for the council to actually take action on the amendment before I can advertise it.
okay, so now that we've passed the amendment, it will be advertised.
It will be advertised.
So we need to table it, run it be advertised, and then brought back next month.
And then whoever makes the motion, if you're tabling it, I'm not telling you to do that. If you make the motion to table it, state which meetings you want it at, please.
Okay, so I make a motion to table the amendment to General Ordinance 7 to the sunshine meeting of next month, September.
Just a correction, you're tabling general ordinance as amended,
As
not
the
just the
amendment.
amendment. Okay.
I said the amendment.
Okay. I
The
said,
proposed amendment,
gotcha.
General ordinance 7 as amended.
yes.
Okay, I second.
Thank you.
It's been moved that we table General Ordinance 7, 2017 as amended by Councilwoman Aller, second by Councilman Azar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Table. Folks, we're going to get it fixed, I assure you. Thanks for coming.
That's for next month.
Councilman Nassar?
Yeah.
Could I just ask that we also, if there are discussions with DLGF or others, I appreciate your saying that UMBA should have something to say about that, but UMBA is a consultant to the city. I would like to have a legal opinion about that.
I totally agree with you.
I second that. Third that. I yield. Can we take a 5-minute recess?
We're going to go ahead, since people are leaving, take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Next order of business, Michelle, please.
I've lost everything,
Sorry.
sorry. General Ordinance 8, 2017, amending City Code, Chapter 9, Article 5, Section 9-112, lease adjustments.
Okay, petitioner to speak on this, please.
Council, Eddie Felling, City Attorney. After the previous ordinance, I am happy to announce that this is a classic piece of legislation where the administration, the council, sanitary commission, and citizens have come together to present something to help alleviate some pains that are a result of water leaks. What this amendment allows is it expands our current leak adjustment policy, which would be just a single month adjustment. This allows an individual to go into either a month immediately before or after their highest month usage and to get an additional credit in their account. This will, in some ways, even go beyond what the water companies is offering with regard to their adjustment at this point. I think it's fair and equitable, and I also know that we have sanitary commission support for this as well. and I'm looking forward to answering any questions and to have this enacted as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on General Ordinance 8, 2017? Hello?
Howdy. My name's Mickey Rooks. I live at 2352 North 26th Street, and I'm here to support the amendment to the leak adjustment on the sanitary sewage. Back in December, I had a huge water leak, and when I got that, I was astounded by the cost of losing a little water. But when I got my sewer bill, I was even more astounded because it was 3 times what my water bill was. And I had my water immediately shut off. I called BNS Plumbing. They come out and bored me a new line, which cost me $1,300. And from there, I thought, well, maybe I ought to call my councilman, which is Karam Nasser. He's the councilman in my district. And he came out to the house, listened to my problem, and agreed with me and put it forth. And I really want to thank the council. I want to thank Mr. Felling, Mr. Spidell, and especially Karam Nasser. And I hope that this adjustment to the code will be helpful to more than just me, because there's going to be a lot of other people out there that will have leaks in the future, you know, and they will, and I really can't afford it because I'm on a fixed income, just like everybody else normally in this room. And whatever you can do in the new amendment, the way I understand it, it might be one of the best amendments in the state of Indiana. That's all I got to say. Again, thank you guys, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Somebody else from the public that'd like to speak on General Ordinance 8, 2017? Council? Councilman?
Mr. Rooks, I'd like to invite you to every meeting that we have. I appreciate the support, and I yield.
I just wanted to make one note to the council. If you have any constituents that ask about this, if it's passed, there is a retroactive application of this as written. It's not as clear because it's in a footnote, but that will afford quite a bit of individuals relief under this. Normally, we only go moving forward, but I know, sir, this, in your case, will help you specifically.
How far back does that go?
Anybody that's received a credit in fiscal year 17, which means really we're going back to leaks that have occurred possibly as late as this time last year. It's whenever the credit was actually posted. However, please note there is a time limit for those individuals to request it, so if you know of anyone that had a bad situation, reach out to them and let them know if this is available for them.
Thank you.
Councilman Crossen.
President Nasser, I move adoption of General Ordinance 8, 2017.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Crossen, second by Councilman Garrison, that we approve General Ordinance 8, 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business, please.
Appropriation for 2017, $85,851.53 from EMS non-reverting number 0270 to Training Academy number 0511.
Petitioner, speak on this, please.
Mr. President, members of council, Jeff Fisher, Fire Chief. Pleasure following this gentleman. I'm glad I didn't have to follow the police pension talks. This is one of 2 transfers from the EMS non-reverting to training non-reverting, 5% transfer. Be more happy to answer any questions.
Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on appropriation for 2017? Council?
President Nasser, I move that we approve appropriation for 2017 as presented.
Second. It's been moved by Councilman Garrison, second by Councilman Morris, that we approve appropriation for 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next order of business, please.
Appropriation 5, 2015, $392,351.64 from edit number 0404 to Barber Avenue corridor number 450521.
Petitioner, speak on this, please.
Yeah, Mr. President, members of the council, Larry Robbins is the city engineer. This money is money that we paid for Indian Americans Water's portion of the Margaret Avenue contract. It is a reimbursement portion.
Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on appropriation 5, 2017? Council?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Aller?
I move that we approve appropriation 5, 2017.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Aller, second by Councilman Nation, that we approve appropriation 5, 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Special ordinance 28, 2017, rezoning of property located at 1120 Beach Street. Favorable recommendation with conditions from area planning.
Petitioner to speak on this, please.
Good evening, Mr. President, fellow members of the council. My name is Richard Shagley. I'm here tonight representing petitioner Flyer Properties LLC. Flyer's property owns this, what was a home that has been torn down. It is now being leased to Keymark Development, which headquarters is across the street. That's on Lafayette. This property is currently being used by the tenant for storage of some of their equipment. This property had a home on it that was condemned. This property was torn down, a fence was erected, trees have been planted, and the whole lot has been gravelled for this storage. This property, as I stated, it is zoned R2. The petitioner is requesting to be zoned R2 plan development for the use that they're currently using it for. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on special ordinance 28, 2017? Council?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Aller?
I move that we approve special ordinance 28, 2017.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Aller, second by Councilman Garrison, that we approve special ordinance 28, 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Resolution 12, 2017, transfer of $16,000 in the EMS non-reverting fund 0270 budget.
Petitioner to speak on this, please.
Mr. President, members of council, Jeff Fisher, Fire Chief. This here is the transfer of $16,000 into a line item to purchase vehicles. I replaced 2 vehicles. Just a little FYI. The 2 vehicles that I replaced, I sent an email out to the different department heads to see if they would like these vehicles, if they would work in their departments. Nobody accepted the vehicles, so we sent them the option and sold them that way. But this money is here to transfer into a line item to purchase 2 vehicles. Replace the training division vehicle and the maintenance chief, 2 pickup trucks. We have to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on resolution 12, 2017? Council? Councilman
How
Moore.
many miles do they have on those? I mean, do you?
One was a Durango, and it was actually Chief Brighton's vehicle when he was chief, and it had 145,000, and the other one was a Crown Vic, and it had around 142,000.
Thank you. I yield.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Aller?
if there's no other discussion, I move that we approve resolution 12, 2017.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Aller, second by Councilman Morris, that we approve resolution 12, 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next order of business, please.
Resolution 13, 2017, transfer of $140,000 in the CCD fund number 0402.
Eddie, do you want to speak on this?
Got a feeling the answer was no.
Because no one's here.
13, resolution 13.
The only one standing.
If I might help out the city attorney.
That would be appreciated. I'm
There's
not
a
sure what
memo
this-
attached to this that says the Department of Engineering is requesting a transfer of budgeted funds within the CCD fund from services contractual to purchase of equipment to cover expenses for the IT department purchases. Please see the attached request for transfer. It's showing services contractual to purchase of equipment. And I believe this was something to do with our servers.
Yeah, if I could jump in, my notes say purchase equipment, IT, servers and storage of city, and also Otero Police Department, as what Mr. Ennis said last week.
And as a member of the city clerk's office who constantly is on a computer, we greatly appreciated this improvement because it will help everyone's network issues.
I can't speak one thing on this. I work with Mr. Spidel regularly. I do know our equipment here is getting dated, and one very important thing with city government, any type of government, is making sure that this type of equipment has backup after backup, because we have a high responsibility of maintaining obviously very sensitive records, whether that be in the clerk's office, legal, controller's office, so that if anything's ever questioned or somebody needs information, that's open and available. So I know, again, it's dated. It's very important we have the backups, and I wouldn't doubt that we see another one of these within the next year or two as far as a substantial upgrade.
I did have a question, Earl, and I'm sorry the mayor or the controller's not here to answer that, but I understand we need equipment and so forth, but with our situation with the 1782 notices, I know this is only $140,000, but should we be in a position to start spending money on accounts that have balance or surpluses in them?
Well, that's that's a great question. I'm wondering the same thing. Just because we approve the transfer doesn't mean it has to be spent. I mean, they can reconsider that in light of what's been going on. My concern with this is, why would this be a charge to a CCD account as opposed to the particular department that's acquiring the equipment and then be part of the charge to their budget? It would make more sense for IT equipment to be in the IT.
I can speak to that. The servers are citywide, and that's shared even, that would go even to sanitary, parks. Everyone shares a centralized server. So I don't believe it would belong to any one particular department.
Well, but the ID department is certainly one of those departments whose portion of their cost gets charged to wastewater. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but the IT services every other department in the city, the IT department. So, it's kind of hard to not have IT personnel and IT equipment, and you got to have it all, to do that. That's my personal preference would be the money be transferred to the general fund and added to the IT budget and then spent there, but that's apparently not the way we do it.
And I don't know what the expenditures have been this year. Obviously, we can't overexpend what the line item allows for. So I'm assuming because it's such a large purchase that we may be unable to do it out of that.
Have we already bought it?
I can't answer that. I apologize.
Mr. President, I just wanted to real quick make a statement. I do not think CCD money can be moved to general fund. I don't know the mayor's plan. I don't know if he didn't put enough money in IT. I can speak, and I'm not calling anybody out, but some council members contact me when they can't access items on the website. That means one of the servers went down again. So I have to contact IT on weekends and evenings, mornings, whenever, and I know it is because the servers are crashing. We did have a significant problem a couple months ago, or 3 or 4 weeks ago, and for example, in the clerk's office, all of our court software is cloud-based. If we do not have a server running and we cannot access the internet, we can't do any court business. All of our, I know some of the other departments are starting to move to cloud-based, and part of the servers are for email, part of the servers are for the media server, which is all of the audio files in the internet, in the web pages. There's also the internet, and I'm just speaking from my personal experience that it gets very frustrating when you're crashing 4 or 5 times a day, and I know the budget is in a bad situation, but we actually would have to quit working.
That would include the police officers as well. They're extremely cloud-based as far as what their computer needs are, and I have recently heard a complaint from Chief Blassie when we had our recent power outages, that storm we had. So this is meant to upgrade those issues.
Councilwoman Crossen.
Yeah, I don't think the issue for me anyway, and I assume for many others on council, is whether or not we may need to update our computer equipment. The question is, how should it appropriately be, one of the questions anyways, how should it appropriately be accounted for and transferred? And it seems to me the people that need to answer that for us aren't here tonight. And I don't think it's fair to put Mr. Felling on the hot seat for that. And it's the only slack I'm giving you tonight, Eddie. But I would, because of that, move that we table this until our September regular meeting.
Second. It's been moved by Councilwoman Crossen, second by Councilman DeBon, that we table Resolution 13, 2017.
Discussion for just a second.
Discussion.
And I would just say to the regular meeting, because I'm not sure that we can count on anybody being better able to answer it at our sunshine meeting, so that's why I said regular. There you go.
All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's tabled. Next order of business, please.
Resolution 16, 2017, supporting the placement of the Terre Haute City Hall on the National Register of Historic Places.
Petitioner, speak on this, please.
Good
Thanks
evening,
for your
Mr.
patience.
President. Members of the council, my name is Tommy Kleckner. I'm Director of the Western Regional Office for Indiana Landmarks, located at 669 Ohio Street. Indiana Landmarks is partnering with Terre Haute Landmarks in pursuing listing of City Hall in the National Register. It's an honorific program. It comes with no restrictions. It establishes eligibility of City Hall for the State Historic Preservation Grant Program. We also hope it strengthens appreciation and encourages appropriate investment in this landmark structure. We welcome your support and endorsement through passage of this resolution. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on Resolution 16, 2017?
Yes, my name is Donald Hyde, and I'd like to speak on it. At the Sunshine meeting, I had no clue what was going on. Now I've heard from the Sunshine meeting and what he just said. I think that you ought to vote again 9-0 to do this for one reason only. There's some minor repairs that have been undone that are just staggeringly obvious when you walk into this building. If you get this on the historical registry, they give money and grants out. Not big amounts, but it would be more than enough, let's say, to fix the front entrance of your building. This building is from the, basically the Great Depression era, FDR's days. It was designed a certain way, and it possesses that classic design. It is more than qualified to be a historical building. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on Resolution 16, 2017? Council?
Mr. President?
Councilman Morris?
I move that Resolution 16 be approved.
Second.
2017. That's right.
It's been moved by Councilman Morris, second by Councilwoman Aller, that we approve Resolution 16, 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business, please.
Resolution 17, Resolution 17, 2017, designating an area commonly identified as 1450 Wabash Avenue and 1451 Eagle Street, Terre Haute, Indiana, is the economic revitalization area for the purpose of a 9-year real property tax abatement. Miller Parrott Lots LP. This is for adoption.
Mr. President, most kind, gracious, and honorable council persons, worked real well for the other guy. I'm Lou Britton. I'm representing the petitioner, Miller Parrott Lofts. We talked about this last week. Their plan is to rehab the former White House Mission property into 54 apartments, 42 one-bedroom, 12 one-bedroom, 12 two-bedroom apartments, plus about 11,000 square feet of general office space. The office space will presumably be occupied by service providers related to the occupants of the property. It is intended to be elderly, low, moderate income housing. They also intend to pursue historic tax credits for the completion of the building. They are seeking tax credits from the IHCDA, which will not be awarded until until the end of February next year, hence the delay between the application for the abatement and the actual start of the project. But they score points on their application for those credits by having local support through the tax abatement process, so they need to complete that process before they file their applications. The project itself is anticipated to cost about $8.9 million in construction costs, with total development costs of $11.7 million. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on Resolution 17, 2017? Council? Mr. President? Councilman, sorry.
That's okay. Still Tommy Kleckner, Indiana Landmarks. I just want to voice Indiana Landmarks' support of the requested tax abatement. I feel it's an appropriate incentive to ensure substantial investment in an area that is in needing stabilization. This type of investment. It's a landmark structure on the Wabash Avenue, the historic National Road. We feel that it could be a catalyst for further investment stabilization in this particular area of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I just wanted to do a reminder. You did have a proposed amendment before you last week on this for the final action. So
They wouldn't need to do that.
I was going to say, I personally wouldn't do it until next month, but I wanted everybody to remember you will need to amend it.
I always agree with
He's a very smart man.
Councilman Nation?
I was just going to say, if there's, well, I guess in short, I agree with Tommy, and I move that we approve Resolution Number 17, 2017.
Second. To be adopted.
I'm sorry, we adopt Resolution 17, 2017. Is that correct? Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Nation, second by Councilman DeBon, that we adopt Resolution 17, 2017. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business.
Thank you very much.
Appropriation 6, 2017, the 2018 City of Terre Haute budget.
Finance.
Special Ordinance 33, 2017, rezoning of property located at 1450 Wabash Avenue and 1451 Eagle Street.
Zoning.
Special Ordinance 34, 2017, rezoning of property located at 1387 Wheeler Avenue.
Zoning.
Special Ordinance 35, 2017, authorizing the issuance of Indiana multifamily housing revenue bonds, Silver Birch of Terre Haute project.
Finance.
Move to adjourn.
It's been moved to adjourn by Councilman Azar, second by Councilman Waller. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Adjourn. Thank you.